Little Bear couldn't sleep. The moon had climbed up into his bed and snuggled under the covers with him, but still Little Bear was wide awake. He looked over at Big Bear, who was fast asleep. His deep breaths were slow and even. He looked so peaceful. How could Big Bear sleep with all that scary stuff out there? Little Bear whispered, "Big Bear, are you afraid of the dark?" Big Bear mumbled something that sounded like, no. You're not afraid of the big bad wolf that lives beyond the whispering willows. No, little one, Big Bear said, his voice still muffled by his sleep. You're not afraid of the shadowy shapes that dance in the moonlight outside our cave. Nope, Big Bear yawned, not afraid at all. Little Bear sighed. It wasn't fair. Why couldn't he sleep? What was so hard about sleeping in the dark? Tossing and turning, he climbed out of bed, careful not to wake Big Bear. He poked his head out of the cave entrance. The moon hung high in the velvety sky, shining silver light down onto the forest floor. Shadows stretched and twisted, reaching out like fingers. They waved at Little Bear, beckoning him closer. A twig snapped somewhere nearby and Little Bear gasped. What if it was the big bad wolf? Quickly, he scrambled back into the cave and hid under Big Bear's warm side. It didn't take long for Big Bear to wake up. Little Bear, what's wrong? Are you having a bad dream? Oh, I'm not dreaming at all, Little Bear whispered. I'm just looking at how dark it is out there. It's too scary. Big Bear smiled. Don't be silly, little one. The darkness is just a blanket for our world. And besides, he said, sitting up and stretching, it's a beautiful night. Why don't we go look at the stars? He took Little Bear's paw and led him outside. The cool night air felt good against Little Bear's fur. Looking up at the endless expanse of twinkling stars, he felt a thrill of excitement mixed with fear. What if a shooting star fell on us? Then we would snuggle under its light until it flew away, Big Bear said with a wink. A shooting star streaked across the sky, leaving a sparkling trail in its wake. Little Bear squealed with delight. See, I told you, it's fun, Big Bear said, chuckling. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the starlight dance around them. Then Little Bear asked, "Do you think the owl is out there, the great horned owl?" "Of course she is. She loves to hunt in the dark." Little Bear shuddered. "I bet she makes a scary noise." Big Bear laughed. "Well then let's go find her and ask." Little Bear shook his head vigorously. "No, no, 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 no. I'm not going anywhere near her. She might swoop down and grab me." As they walked deeper into the forest, Little Bear grew braver. He even stopped worrying about the snapping twigs, the hooting owls, and the rustling leaves. He looked up at Big Bear, who seemed to glow in the dim moonlight. "Do you think there's a monster hiding behind that log?" Little Bear asked. "Let's see," Big Bear said, moving the log aside with his big paws. From underneath it popped a tiny field mouse. He squeaked and darted away. "See, Little Bear, nothing to be afraid of." Oh, Little Bear felt a blush creeping up his neck. It was silly to be afraid of everything. They came across a babbling brook and Little Bear stopped in his tracks. "How can we cross it? What if something lives in the water and tries to pull me under?" Big Bear dipped a toe into the water and tested it. "It's shallow enough to walk through," he said. "Come on." Hand in paw, they walked into the water. The current was cold, but Little Bear didn't care because Big Bear was holding on tight. Soon they reached the other side and shook their paws dry. "There's nothing scary here," Little Bear admitted. And that's when they saw it. A pair of glowing eyes peered at them from behind a bush. Little Bear whimpered and hid behind Big Bear's leg. "Who's there?" Big Bear boomed, trying to sound brave. Out popped a little firefly. "Oh, hello," he said, hovering in front of them. "I was just playing hide and seek with my friends." Oh, Little Bear felt embarrassed. Again, he shouldn't be scared of everything. The firefly winked. "Want to play with us? We can hide in this bush and you can try to find us." And so Little Bear spent the rest of the night playing with the fireflies. They twinkled and flashed, guiding him to the best hiding spots. He chased them through the tall grass, giggling all the way. When he finally got tired, Big Bear was waiting for him by the bush. "You look like you had fun," he said with a smile. "I did," Little Bear yawned. "But I still don't understand why you're not afraid of anything." "Because I know I'm loved," Big Bear said, nuzzling Little Bear with his big nose. "And that makes me feel safe." The two bears walked back to their cave, hand in paw. Little Bear knew what Big Bear meant, but he was still a little scared. So when they got inside, he climbed into Big Bear's huge, cozy hug and closed his eyes. "Love makes us brave, huh?" Little Bear asked. "Yep," Big Bear said, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. All you have to do is look around you to see how much love there is in this world. Love between friends, family, and even between a bear and his blankets. Little Bear looked around the cave at all the things he loved. His toys, his chair, his bed, and most of all, Big Bear. "Oh," Little Bear whispered, "I love this cave." And Big Bear said, "I love you, Little Bear." And that made him brave. With one last sniffle, Little Bear snuggled into his big, furry friend. Big Bear wrapped his strong arms around Little Bear, squeezing him tight. Soon, Little Bear was fast asleep. Every night after that, when Little Bear felt afraid, he remembered what Big Bear had told him. He thought about all the love surrounding him, and that always made him feel better. And now it is time for you to close your eyes and remember all the things that you love. When you feel scared, just think of all that love and you will be brave, too. The end.